Hey, my name is Mike Provenzano. I just had the privilege of being interviewed by Keith Andrew on his Keith Andrew Network, and he's 13 years in. What a blast. Thanks for having me, Keith.
I'm your host, Keith Andrew, and you're watching the Keith Andrew Network. It is season 13, 1,245. That's right, we did over 1,245 episodes, also known as season 13, episode 45. Here's a good friend, Mr. Mike. Welcome back to the Keith Andrew Network.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks for having me. I can't believe you're in your 13th season and you've done over 1,245 episodes. That's incredible, man. Way to go. That's awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. As we're talking, we're going to see a picture of our last interview. But just remind me, did we talk before, probably it was before the pandemic we talked, right?
Man. I don't know. It's been a while. It was probably during the pandemic. I think I was in it. I know I wasn't where I'm at now. I'm not sure. I think it was like either right before it or right after the pandemic started.
Well, we can always catch up on that. But so actually, that's a perfect segue. How has the pandemic impacted your life? And do you see life in a different point of view?
It impacted me, I think, the same way it impacted everybody else, where you couldn't work anymore for a period of time, right? We were all at a standstill. But for the acting stuff, for me, we all started doing self-tapes. So there was no more going to an audition in person, right? That kind of stopped. So everybody started submitting self-tapes as their auditions. So you can audition from anywhere now, which is kind of cool. And you can do it on your own time, so to speak. You obviously have to get it turned in a specific time frame, but you're not traveling back and forth and all that stuff. So we saved a ton of time in doing that. But for me, during the pandemic, I started doing these social media ads. And during the pandemic, when we couldn't work, I could obviously do that kind of work from home. And it really took off. Like I'm doing that full time now. I'm still acting, I'm just doing this stuff to pay the bills in between the acting jobs I get, which is kind of cool. So as far as but the pandemic, for me, it affected my kids more because they had to miss school and do school from home and all that stuff. That was just, a mess back then. But thankfully, we're behind it. So I kind of like forgot about it because it's in the past.
It is hard to believe it's only been a long 6 years, but it's better than. I mean, okay, on the Keith Andrew Network, we encourage people to get vaccinated because there's a certain group of people that don't get vaccinated, and that's their
Mhm.
business. But unfortunately, in that result, the hell, I'm just gonna say it. I live down the road from the Hasidics, and they don't get vaccinated. So there's cases of RSV and the whooping cough and polio, and there's so many diseases that you think would have been exterminated. Well, it's a long choice of
Yeah.
words. You would
Mhm.
think they were gone, but the whooping cough, freaking polio, it's really scary. But these diseases are coming back just because people don't want to get freaking vaccinated. Now, with that being said, just because you get vaccinated doesn't mean it makes you invincible. it protects you to a point where you don't have to worry about going to the emergency room and being hooked up to a life support machine. So we do encourage people to get vaccinated.
Sure. I think there's a process for it though. You're right with COVID, there was like here's a vaccine everybody needs to start taking that had no history, it had no, nothing. It was just like thrown at everybody. And all the other vaccines were not handled that way, right? They've all been around forever. Now, whether you give your newborn a ton of vaccines all at one time, that's a completely different topic. But I think over time, everybody should be vaccinated. I think you're right about that. The COVID one, I don't necessarily, I did get vaccinated so I could work, but I'm not a believer in that one now because it just didn't, it was too rushed and there was no data behind it.
All right. Well, that's because you get, well, not to talk about political things, but it's like the flu shot. There's two strains. When you
Yeah.
get the flu shot, and you're either getting it for strain A or strain B. You're still going to get sick, but you don't
Yeah.
want to
Right.
get to the extreme point. But anyway, not to talk
Yep.
about
I agree.
political things. But the other thing I'm very interested in, or in real history for our audience, you are an actor, spokesman, producer, and you mentioned during the pandemic that you actually worked from home. And for me, I always work from home because this is a passion of mine. I love doing what I'm doing.
Mhm.
And that's a
Yep.
subject I do want to talk to you about in a couple minutes. But the film I caught my interest, the one film that caught my interest is you were in, I think, a Spider-Man film that you're actually working on.
Oh, wow. That was a long time ago. Yep.
What can
That
you
was a
tell
long.
us about that?
That was a while ago. That we filmed it up in Boston. I was up there for a few days. I played Manfredi, one of the characters. It's there's not a lot for me to tell. They're filming a follow. They filmed a sequel. Unfortunately, I wasn't available because I was down in Florida to be a part of it. But it was just a fun gig to be a part of. Lots of moving parts with that because you think about it, the guy that was playing Spider-Man had to be all over the place, up and down, and having him getting in and out of that costume, man, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That was just, watching that. He had to get sewed up every single time he got put in it. But it was a great group of people, a whole lot of fun, and yeah, it was just another experience that was just a blast.
No, absolutely. Mike here on the Key Fancy Network, freedom, speech, self-expression. So if I did impose, I do apologize.
No, no, no problem at all whatsoever.
And you can throw it back at me. I have no cards on my sleeve, so you can ask me anything you want in return.
Yep.
Now, you
All
also
fair.
mentioned you wrote a book. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was it's a Christmas book called Roxy the Reindeer's Magical Christmas Journey, and it was a story. I was telling my kid bedtime stories when he was younger, and I said, why don't we just try to make a book out of one of them, one of the stories? And I would make something up every night, and so I took that one. As we were making it up, I just hit record on my phone, you know what I mean, to remember what I said. And lo and behold, I found somebody to do the drawings for me. One of my buddy's daughters actually did it, and yeah, it's a fun little Christmas book. I don't really push it too hard now because we still have the time to, but like I said, it's something that is a cute story for kids, from 3 to 9 years old or something like that. It's that I put out every Christmas time.
And obviously, I still read from a card, but the reason I read from the card is I wrote down certain subjects, key points I want to talk about. But the one that I'm looking at that really caught my interest, and I think we talked about this last time, but I want to ask you, go back over it this time, is you said you help brands tell their stories. How do you do that?
Well, I do that every day now. That's kind of what I do. And I do that by putting videos together for them, right? So a brand, if you scroll on social media, you see ads every day, right? Every day. They're all over the place. And brands are promoting ads on there. It's not, it's easier for a brand to put something together. It's more economical for them. They get a bigger, I don't want to say a bigger reach, but they get a big reach in social media because so many people that are on their phones living on social media versus being in front of a TV. Even you think about the vertical, films are now being made for your phone. So I get products sent to my house all the time, and I talk about them. I do scenes with it. Sometimes I do the editing work. Sometimes I send it back to the client, and they do the editing work. It all comes down to the deal itself. And I just talk about the products. And for me, because I've been doing it so long, I've just gotten very comfortable at talking on camera. It's second nature to me now. If you asked me that 10 years, well, maybe not 10 years ago, but 15 years ago, I might have thought otherwise. But yeah, I just, like I said, I reach out to brands all the time, and I get hired to do different products. There's no one standard to it. I do all kinds of stuff.
Hey, I'm in no position to hire anybody. Shit, I'm still unemployed. Uh, but knock on wood, hopefully things work out. I would love to hire you. But throwing it out at you, would you be interested in volunteer work? I would love to hire work with collaborate. What was the correct word? I guess collaborate. If you would be interested in being my spokesperson.
Let's talk about it. Sure, we can talk offline afterwards. Sure.
No, absolutely. So the next one I want to talk to you about is who influenced you to become a spokesperson? Because obviously you have a background as being a professional actor and doing voiceovers, and you also are a producer. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But who inspired you to be like a spokesperson? What was that moment said, you know what, I want to try this?
A buddy of mine, I'll give him the credit. Rich, Rich Henkels is a friend of mine. He's an actor as well. We met, almost 10 years ago. And for me, I was getting, and I think it was him. I was just, I was going after whatever type of work I could go after. And I'm like, I know how to talk on camera, so why don't I go after that kind of work too? So I did, and I remember one job, him and we both lived in Pennsylvania. We were both going up for the same job. We both were auditioning at, back to back. So we both got on a train, headed up together, got to the studio together. We both auditioned. He booked the job. I was brand new at it. He had been doing it for years because he was a sportscaster, and yeah, so that's kind of how well, I don't know if that's how I got started in it, but yeah, I just remember he was even teaching a class. I took a class from him, and here I am, X years later doing it and having a blast.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about producing. When we come back from this commercial break, back from the quick commercial break, it's Friday night, and if you're a fan of WWE SmackDown, definitely check it out on the USA Network. So the next one I want to talk to you about, it's actually brought to you by Instagram. Are you on Instagram? And let me ask you, what were some of your favorite films that you were ever produced?
For me, I'd say 15 Roses was my favorite. It was I still have a dream of being on the Hallmark Channel as a principal actor, and I didn't have any footage to show that I could act in those types of roles. So I had a friend of mine write me a script. He was like, "Hey, for X dollars, I can write you a scene." He goes, "For a little bit more, I'll write you a film." I'm like, "Well, write me a film." So write me a film, and it's a rom-com. It's a fun one, and I just had a blast doing it. I was able to bring so many people that I'm friends with into film, from the industry. I met some new friends that came on board that were a part of it as well, and it was just a blast to do. So I'd say that was probably my favorite out of all of them. I did produce a fun one as the Grinch. It was just a quick The Grinch Within was called like a 5 minute short film, but it was just fun.
It's funny you should mention that because next one, it's brought to you by YouTube. You actually have a YouTube channel that will be in the description where everyone can see your highlights and films that you were a part of. It's really great. I would recommend it. And that's a nice segue for our next subject of social media. With that being said, there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's so many great websites out there. With that being said, is there any websites you would personally recommend and say, for an example, if it wasn't for Instagram, if it wasn't for Facebook or LinkedIn, I wouldn't have met. I'll give you an example. That's how we met. So it
Mhm.
helps people connect. But
Yeah.
in your point of view, was there any websites you would highly recommend?
Um, it comes down to what someone wants to get out of it. You know what I mean? If every site or platform provides a different outcome for people. If you're looking to connect with people, Facebook and Instagram are great for that. If you're looking to promote, I would say promote, but have a page with all of your work. That's YouTube's a great place for that. YouTube Shorts is great there. Um, each one, like I said, each one of them has a different use, I guess you could call it. So I don't think I'd promote one over another. I think it's everybody treats these individually, and it's whatever makes sense for somebody is what they use. I remember when I first started jumping on Facebook, when it first came, not when it first came out, but a little after it came out, I started connecting with all my old friends that I knew that I grew up with that I had lost touch with. I thought that was really cool.
No, I agree. It's always good to catch up with people and network it is the same point because people
Mhm.
like say the same slogan over and over again. It's the people that you know, that's how you get ahead in life. So don't
Oh,
burn any
absolutely.
bridges.
Oh, it's a small world, no doubt.
That's true. You're going to meet the same people going up as you're going back down.
It's true.
Well, let me ask you this. The big thing in the entertainment world is AI. As an actor, writer, and producer, how do you feel that AI is impacting the industry?
I guess for me, I'm cautious about, like, I believe in technology. I was in technology long before I became an actor, so I support technology advances, right? Tech just helps us do things more efficiently. Is it going to take away some jobs? Yes. Is it going to create different jobs? Yes, it's going to do both. I think AI in its term scares people because they don't know, right? And there's people that aren't into technology, so they fear what they don't know. And I think if people were to get to know it a little bit, just like a human being, you get to know somebody, you either like them or you don't, right? I think AI is the same. You either get used to using it and have it help you in what you do, or you don't. And I think the people that use AI to help them in whatever field or whatever they're doing, I just think it can help them. I use it all the time. I use ChatGPT all the time, but um, yeah, like I said, do I want it to replace humans? No, I don't. You know what I mean? But there are technologies that do make sense to help us, work smarter.
No, you're right. There's a video on TikTok that said 5 things that may not be around in the next 5 years. Cashiers, unfortunately. I like being a cashier, so I don't want that to go away.
Mhm.
What's the other one? Streaming, not streaming as in Apple TV, streaming as in you have a normal cable box or cable. It's
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're going to get rid of that. A home line. Who uses a hard line anymore? Everything's going to be on a freaking cell phone. But
Yep.
it's really important to have a hard line in case the power goes out. You can still get a hold of someone in case of an emergency.
Yep, exactly right. There's benefits, put it this way, that you think about the old days, like when I was a kid, we had a phone attached to the wall with a 30-foot cord on it if you wanted to walk around with it, right? And kids nowadays, they don't even know what that is. They don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's cool to bring things back that makes sense to bring back, you know?
Not dial-up. Oh God, I can't stand that. I know,
Nah, I don't think we'll go back that way. I don't think we'll go back that far.
but that reminds me of a story. We had a bad snowstorm and we had no power, but the hardwired phone was still able to work. So I still remember my mom called up my grandmother who lived in Long Island and said, "Yeah, we're gonna head out to you because we have no power here." And as we're all packed up, ready to go, boop, the power turns back on.
Yep, that's how it
But
usually works.
hey, thank God for the generator, right?
Exactly right. Generators help big time, that's for sure.
So I'm going to pass the show over to you. Was there anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to promote? This is your time, whatever you want to talk about.
I'll go a different route today. I'm in a men's group, and this morning we were talking about Ash Wednesday and what it means and what people give up, right? That's what everybody talks about. What do they give up for Lent? And for me, one of the guys said there's two things that he went when he went to church on Wednesday. He said they talk about what are you going to give up and what are you going to do for Lent. And so when he told me that, I was like, that's a different approach to it, as opposed to just saying, hey, I'm going to give up sweets or I'm going to give up coffee or chocolate or
Hmm.
whatever, donuts or something. But what am I going to do to help others, to bring myself closer to God, all that stuff. So it was kind of cool that we talked about that. Um, but I'm not a big promoter of myself. I don't do that. I'm working on some projects that are coming up, which are going to be pretty fun in the future. They're just early stages right now. I've got, like I said, I'm doing plenty of spokesperson and social media ads. I do those all the time. So if anybody's ever looking for somebody to did, I can do a lot of different things, which is kind of cool. I live in Florida, so it's nice most of the time. So while it's cold in winter time down there, or in a lot of areas down here, it's warm, so I can still film outside and that kind of stuff, which is kind of cool. So tell me a little, what's going on with you, man? It's been a while.
Oh, working on my talk show and you keeping busy. Actually, that's the
Hmm.
next subject I do want to talk to you about. Is I want not saying it to me. I want you to talk directly to our audience. My new thing, and you weren't one of these people that said it to me, but there are other people who said to me, how long has it taken you to do the interviews? How long does it take? So it usually takes about 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. And people
Hmm.
always like to say, I wish I had $1 for every time I said this. But they always say, oh, do you get paid for your time? Do people pay you? And could have when I did it like a couple of years ago. But the biggest thing is when you first are starting out, you want to build like a house of cards. You want to make a solid foundation. It's like, this is your message, this is what you're doing. Because if I came out of the gates, swinging, hey, yo, you want to swing? We can swing a little. But if you want, bad impression. But if you come out swinging saying, oh, I charge $32, I'm like, well, first off, who are you? Do you have recommendations? Do you have
Hmm.
references? Who the hell is this guy? So I'm like, okay, wait a couple of years. Now that it's a solid, thanks to you, it's a solid, 13 years over 1,245 episodes. I have a solid foundation. So I'm like, yes. Instead of working at a 9 to 5 job is something you hate, I used to
Hmm.
work at Walmart, and people are like, "Oh, no reason came on your register because you're smiling, you look happy, you're cracking jokes." And I'm like, "Well, I'm a talk show host in my free time." Oh, well, then what are you doing here? So I said,
Hmm.
and then during that time, people would say to me, "Oh, you should have people pay for you for your time because this is not just about you; it's about them." And
Sure.
it's a quick. So pretty much, you're hiring me to represent you. Your interview will be on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. First 3 minutes will be on Instagram and TikTok. So pretty much by you being on this, and I really wish I had a freaking dollar for every time I said this, By you being on the show, you're supporting a talk show host with a disability. That's
Mhm.
as far as it goes. In return, you get a professional article, a recommendation, professional interview, and it will be shared on all social medias. So you're hiring me to give you a platform to share your message, whatever it could be. Could be
Mhm.
politics, could be freedom of speech, could be everything. I know you just rolled your eyes at that one,
Could be
politics.
anything. No,
Yeah,
could be
it
whatever.
could
You're right.
be anything you want. It's
Mhm.
just the fact you're hiring me to do what I love and do what you love. So the question I want to ask you to get the big elephant out of the room, big elephant go bye-bye. Let's get the big
Mhm.
elephant out of the room. When I told you I started to charge people $32, I want your honest opinion. What made you say yes? Because obviously you worked with me before. So, but
Mhm.
for anyone who sees this for the very first time,
Sure.
what would you have to tell them about me?
Well, for starters, I have a son with special needs, right? So, there's a place in my heart dear and near for anybody that's got any kind of disability of any kind. So, we've, done interviews in the past, and I was happy to help you continue what you're doing, So you're right. For me, there's a value to your time, to our time, right? I have a value for my time when I'm working for somebody else. You should be in the same boat for you. And so when you said you were charging, I was like, okay, it's not like you're charging hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And so I was like, sure, why not? I'd be happy to talk with you again and help support you as you're continuing your journey. So that's for me, that's why I did it. And I'd support it again.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm not kissing your ass or anything. And then when I first charge people, I'm like, oh, $20. And people are like, well, and then they sort of ask me, how long? What's the process? And I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's too cheap. Oh, why are you downing yourself? So then I did 40. Well, 40 is a little bit, what kind of, so blah, blah, blah. So I said, fine. What about a normal 32? And if thanks you're one of them who say, oh, no problem. And there's other people for the love of God, like to throw it back in my face saying, "Oh, how dare you charge, for doing interviews? Hey, you're a disgusting person. You don't charge people to be interviewed." And I'm like, "Well, let me explain. I'm born and disabled. I can't work. I'm self-employed. I have a strong passion for doing what I love,
Hmm.
and it's a professional show." Of course, I say stupid ass things, but freedom of speech.
Hmm.
But it's a professional show, and then I don't like to guilt trip people. I don't like them saying, "Oh, he's disabled and he's a charity case." It's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like you're getting something out of it, you're getting something out of it. You know what I mean? It's just as soon as you give someone an inch, they like to take your arm. And it's kind
Well,
of like, why does everything have to be a confrontation? And it shouldn't be.
I don't think it needs to be, Keith. I think what I would recommend you is the naysayers just move on. There's plenty of people they'll say yes to you that won't give you a hard time, that won't say why are you charging, that won't do all that stuff. There's plenty of people out there that will say yes for the people that'll say no. So for the people to say no, just say, okay, thanks for your time. Move on to the next person that you're going to try to interview. And, our jobs are not to worry about what everybody else is thinking about us or at all, right? So don't worry about what other people think about you charging for an interview. It's like you have a life to live, you've got bills to pay just like everybody else does, and you're doing your thing as a somebody that's got a disability, and hats off to you for doing it because a lot of people just would not. You know what I mean? So you're doing your passion, you're loving it and having a blast. So like I said, forget about the naysayers, just focus on the positive and keep moving forward.
No, absolutely. You know, last thing I do want to say real fast, and I'll pass it over to you, is this June, June 10th, will be my official. I don't want to wait until June to say 13 years. It's been 13 years, but I'm doing a
Mhm.
13-year anniversary episode. I would love to have you a part of it. I usually stop doing them because, you know, had doing the same episode over and over again.
Yeah, yeah.
It's repetitive. But for something about the number 13 really means a lot to me. So I would love to have you part of that.
Sure,
But
absolutely.
I do have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, how can our fans and listeners get in touch with you?
Oh, easiest way is just find me on social media. Most of my profiles are based on my name, so if you look up Mike Provenzano, you'll find my face. You know, that's for sure. Whether it's Facebook or Instagram or any of the other platforms, I'm on most of them. You know, I'm not active on all of them, but you know, my accounts are there.
And now, Lord, I will be on the bottom of the screen. By wrapping up the interview segment, it was a real honor, privilege catching up with you. I'm looking forward to building on the friendship. And until we meet again, I catch you later. Thank you,
All right,
and have a good
thanks,
night.
Keith.